We'll call this meeting to order. First thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next on the agenda is any citizens to be heard. Is anybody here that wants to talk that's not on the agenda? Again, is there anybody here that wants to speak on something that's not on the agenda? Ma'am, did you want to talk about something that's not on the agenda? You can come forward to the podium and identify yourself. Give a short presentation of what you need.
Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I'm 6 months pregnant. I'm a pro se litigant. I have had my son wrongfully taken from me by the father of my child and through the Clay County court system. He has 5 DUIs and he has strangled me. City of Moorhead police have hidden the strangulations and deleted my 911 phone calls. I need help getting my son back. I'm afraid to turn in the RICO paperwork in fear that I'm going to get murdered. I'm serious.
Have you worked with social services here? Or?
Yeah, they're trying to help investigate because I used to have a attorney at Legal Services of Northwest Minnesota. And there's been pretty obvious fraud upon the court. But I don't know where to go. I'm overwhelmed. Like I said, I'm 6 months pregnant. I'm due in February, and I deserve to have my son back. The father of my child has a probation violation hearing downstairs today for his 5th DUI. Why does he have my son? And why has Leah Ducharne refused to recuse herself when she knows that I had a 3-hour consultation in 2020 at Jesdal Family Law, where she used to work? I call planned child procurement, and I'm incredibly scared.
What is it you're requesting us to do? What?
Is there any way that an order of protection can be put to help protect me from any possible? Because I've talked to Kent Rockstad of the North Dakota Attorney General's office about my concerns, and I'm going to ask Cass County Court if they can look at this case, the family case in particular, and the strangulations.
So if you've been in Cass County Court, do you live in North Dakota or do you live in Minnesota?
I've lived in Minnesota since 2018. I've been trying to move to North Dakota because they have a bill called HB 1533, which is a bill for an act to end court litigation abuse for domestic abuse survivors. And I have been in touch with Josh Boucher, the North Dakota representative who's behind this bill. Around the time I was connected with Josh Boucher, one of the windows was vandalized at the place that I work. But this is how racketeers work, is they will threaten you in clandestine ways where it's hard to figure out who did it.
Dave, did you have a
Yep. Where did the strangulation events occur, North Dakota or Minnesota?
Minnesota, right at about 2 months after I moved from North Dakota. I used to live in North Dakota for about 8 years prior.
Did any assaultive behavior take place in North Dakota?
Yes, yep.
Has that been reported?
February 14th, 2018, he pled guilty to his first domestic assault in North Dakota. And then he apologized and convinced me to move in with him on the Minnesota side. I do have proof that it was Sergeant 207 Joel Voxland. He's now chief of police at Barnesville. I have spoken with him August 7th, 2023 about these strangulations, about purposely not forwarding the strangulation reports. And he said it's because of what Carlos said is the reason why he didn't forward them. And that doesn't make any sense to me. Because you can't just sweet talk an officer. It doesn't make sense.
we're in a position where we don't have any authority over the court system, or, other than budgeting, we don't have any function for the criminal justice system here in Clay County. The court system, if there's problems with that, that would be something probably through the Attorney General's office that would need to take place.
And that's what I've been doing. That's the route I've been taking. And I understand that everything happens, and that's what happens with domestic abuse. Everything happens behind closed doors. And that's what's happening with this court litigation abuse. Everything's happening behind the closed doors of the court and the authority of the court.
Do you still have counsel? Do you have an attorney?
No, I've been representing myself since June 2022. I've learned a lot about my rights, but have consistently gotten them violated.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Emery, I'll just step in. I mean, we're aware of Ms. Boucher, and she has been involved in the court. She has her own, there's a order for protection against her involving the individual. She's been charged. She was found to be incompetent because of her mental illness. So we've worked through that process. She ultimately was not committed, but the process has been explained to her that she could go and attempt to get an order for protection in regard for herself. I don't know if she's attempted to do that and that's been denied, or if she's not even tried to do that, but that would be the process that she would need to apply for her own order for protection. I do believe she understands that. I know that Social Services has worked with her, and that's, again, what we would advise her to do is continue to work with Social Services, but any type of family plan or family case that's working its way through the courts, we do not get involved with that. The state does not. She would have to hire her own defense counsel to help her with that. And so those are things that have been advised to her in the past. Whether she's taken advantage of those or not, I guess I can't say, but I would just advise the board of that.
Thank you, Ms. Melton. The custody of the child is basically a matter that is not criminal. And hence, Clay County prosecution resources are not going to handle that case for you. You need to get private counsel, and you need to listen to what they advise.
Mr. Chair. Ma'am, I don't believe you identified yourself either.
Samantha Marie Boucher.
Okay. Samantha, I appreciate that you came here today. This is an avenue in which citizens can reach out to seek clarification, and I'm hopeful that our attorney did offer a bit of a avenue for you. I do want to congratulate you on your pregnancy. That's an exciting time, and I hope that you can find some comfort in that process. The Rape Abuse Crisis Center offers so much counseling in situations in which you've described, so I'm hopeful that maybe they could offer some help as well. But as the other commissioners have alluded, we do not have any control over the court systems, and that's by nature the way it needs to be, but certainly hope that you can find an avenue to get some support.
I'm just scared, and I want to be safe and happy. Thank you.
Anybody else that wishes to speak? Anybody on the?
I do have something, Mr. Chair. I received a request to read this presentation from Roger and Margaret Hageland. They are in Northwest Moorhead concerning the North Broadway Bridge. The message that they wanted to have read is: we've lived in our home in our home in Minnesota side of the Broadway Bridge for 52 years. Our church and most of the businesses we shop at are in North Fargo, so we have driven across the previous two bridges thousands of times. This is the same. The same is true for others in Oakport residents, as well as people living north of us in Clay County. I strongly urge you to rebuild the bridge. As development in our area increases, the traffic going to Northport will only increase. Driving through the current detour in the residential area is not a solution. Of course, it is longer, but also the street is too narrow, and when cars are parked on both sides, I know the residents there didn't expect their quiet street to become a major thoroughfare, so it is not fair to them either. Option 2A would be an ideal, so the bridge would be out of the floodplain. However, at a minimum, build option 1, even if it floods out a couple of weeks occasionally, the bridge needs to be built. Roger and Margaret Hegland.
Okay. Anything further? That's,
Nothing else further, Mr. Chair.
okay.
I might add to that, if I might, Mr. Chair. I know there's been lots of presentations. The Highway Committee, that certainly is within your purview. And I've seen presentations only because I make a habit of watching other municipalities' presentations. And this board hasn't specifically talked about those different options. I know you have, but whenever the timing makes sense, I think that might be a helpful presentation.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, those most recent options were just options that were recently proposed by the City of Fargo engineers to the Fargo City Council. We have not formally seen those even from the highway tracking standpoint. We do know that there were 3 potential options before, well, 4 and 1 being do nothing. But one was the low bridge, another one was a intermediate, and one was a long bridge. And I think now they've updated those numbers, and there's certainly a lot more dollars than we had previously been estimated. So, but we'll, as soon as we get that, we'll, and certainly this board needs to have a determination of which one we would support. However, we also got to understand which one MnDOT would support, because all of those bridge bonding dollars comes from MnDOT and not Clay County. So, but I agree with Commissioner Moser. We'll try to get some information from Justin and bring that forward.
I think one of the options was to do nothing, too.
That's the 4th option.
Very good. Okay. Move on to approval of bills and vouchers.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of bills and vouchers.
Okay, we got a motion to approve the bills and vouchers. And a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, we will move on to request to approve resolution 2023-25 for setting a date and terms for tax forfeit property sale. Jackie, there, you're there already.
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning. Just a request to approve for the time of December 13th at 10:30 in the morning for the tax forfeit sale. There's 5 items on there. 3 are new added this year. They actually went to tax forfeit last year. City of Holly was going to purchase them and then did back out in the end, and then decided against purchasing them, so that's why they have to go on the sale this year. And then the other 2 that were previously on the Clay County website, the amounts, or excuse me, the values lowered, so that's why we had to relist them on. So these 5 would go to auction on December 13th.
Okay. I see there's one Barnesville one in there, right?
Yeah, or sorry, there's a Barnesville City, that one was on there prior.
Okay, all
And
right.
so was the other Holly one. The top 2 were on there previously from years and years ago, and they've never been purchased. So then the values got lowered this past year.
Okay. Very good.
Mr. Chair, I'd move resolution 2023-25.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve resolution 2023-25. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 tax forfeit list.
Second.
Is that part of this one?
I thought the resolution was just to set the date, and then the next motion would be to approve the list, correct? No?
We need both of them, okay? We've got a motion.
Well, the resolution doesn't include the list of the properties, and on the memo, there,
Yes, do one one for each, please.
Okay, we got a motion to approve the tax forfeit list.
I second it.
And we got a second on that. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Jackie.
Request approval of the Millz House bid to replace the West Central Juvenile Center gym floor. Is Jim here, or? He's not here yet? Okay, we'll move on to number 4. Request approval to issue request for proposal for distribution of the statewide local affordable housing aid.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Okay, I am here today to talk about the statewide affordable housing aid that is a new aid program from the omnibus tax bill this last legislative session. We're seeking approval to issue a request for proposal to distribute these funds. These funds, the spirit of these funds is to develop and preserve affordable housing within our county and city jurisdictions, to help families to keep families from losing their housing, or to help those experiencing homelessness find housing. In your packet, I provided a summary sheet as well as a proposed request for proposal, and the allocations that are certified for 2023 and 2024. As you could see in that information, for 2023, Clay County was appropriated $160,402, and that same amount for 2024. We are slated to receive the 2023 funds in December of this year, and then the 2024 funds will be spread out over 2 payments, one in July of 2024 and one in December of 2024. So we have not actually received these funds yet, is my understanding. We thought that it would be the best approach to handle this like we did the family preservation funds, where we issued an RFP. In the RFP, I've taken right from the statute what the intended purpose of the funds are, what's the scope of the projects. I put all of that in the RFP so that responders would know exactly what we're looking for and would be in compliance with the statute. We could develop a review panel to review the proposals and then make a recommended selection and then come back before the board for final approval of utilization of the funds. Any questions?
Ron, I see that in your documents here that you're asking for those to be returned by December 1st of 2023, right? The RFPs, is that?
Well, I did put that in there, however, that is a point of discussion if we feel. I think that if the board did approve issuing an RFP today, I could get it out yet this week, and if we felt that that was adequate time, we could certainly.
Maybe I should have expanded a little bit on the reason. We've had some discussions about these funds and what might be a useful source of them, and we have a Clay County HRA that's maybe interested in, and there's probably others interested as well. But ultimately, is it my microphone that's making that? But ultimately, it's something that we would like to. We're hopeful that we would have that information to help us decide before 12/31 or whatever time frame it is that we have to make a determination on the funding for Clay County HRA too. So I guess I'm more interested in this timeline process right now than, is it mine?
Right. Truth in taxation is,
So it would be the evening of the 12th. So I think that the timeline, December 1st, allows us to receive them. It allows us to evaluate them, and also allows us to score and meet. And so I think the intent would be to come for a proposal on the 12th of December, which would allow a decision to be made prior to the finalization of the board the following week.
Okay. I guess I just wanted to make sure that we're very interested in what your outcome of your finding is of the RFPs and that needs to be timely for what we're considering down the road, so.
Mr. Chair, if I might, we could look at a proposed timeline of, if we looked at December 1st for the deadline at 4:30, and we had our committee in place, we could certainly review proposals and score them on Monday, December 4th, and perhaps even bring a recommendation to the board on the 5th, which would be prior to truth and taxation on the 12th, if that
We've got no meeting.
timeline fits.
There's no meeting on the 5th.
Oh, there's no meeting on the 5th?
Yeah.
Okay, so then, sure.
Well, I guess that, Steve, I think it kind of goes to you, I think, with what all we're looking at down the road in terms of levy options and what we're going to allow others to have, and we need to have this information.
Yeah, again, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Campbell, our goal will be to have a recommendation by the 12th, which would allow that finalization of the levy by the following week.
And I think that's fine. As long as that's the goal, that's good.
Almost sounds like a motion.
Sure, yes, it is a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve the
Request,
distribution of statewide local assistance,
It's a-
affordable housing aid,
request for proposals. It's-
a request for a proposal for distribution. Ron, did you-
Yeah, if I could just add one piece that I had failed to discuss with Steve. So would the board like to allocate the 2023 and 2024 funds? Or are we just looking at the 2023 funds at this time?
I would think that we would, if we have the option to do either or both, I think that we need to have both those on the table for us.
Yeah.
Because the RFP is going to include both, right?
Well, that was, as I was reading this through more thoroughly, it certainly can, just acknowledging that we're approving a project with funds we don't actually have yet. So, knowing that they will be allocated, again, we'll have our first payment of $160,402 in December. The remaining two payments for 2024 won't be till July and December.
But Rhonda, in your request for proposals and for example, the one that would be accepted, part of the accepting of that, we could put the condition that the funding becomes available.
Absolutely, we could put
So
that in.
you have that ability to handle it in that fashion,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Okay. You settled on the motion then? Paul, you had a question?
It followed with that, so I agree with that.
Very good. Okay. The motion is to include 2023 and 2024. Very good. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Happy spending.
Hey, Mr. Rhonda, can I ask you one question before you leave? So part of what you talked about was the option to assist folks to stay in their home. Do we have any information right now that talks about what funding comes through social services that is already used for that purpose?
We certainly do have pots of money that help with that. We have our emergency assistance program that's funded under our MFIP consolidated dollars. I want to say we have about $130,000, and that is available for folks to apply for things like utility shutoffs, eviction notices, things like that, based on qualifying events. We do have the family homeless prevention funds that we just distributed. We distributed those to CAP LP, and they have features in there that are intended to help people remain in their homes so they don't lose housing. And there's a various other programs that both CAP LP, Clay HRA, and other programs do administer.
I mean, maybe if it'd be helpful, I think, for me and hopefully for the others, if we could just maybe get
Sure.
a little sheet that kind of explains what those different options are available to. Quite frankly, I do get some senior people who call me concerned about being able to stay in their home. So it'd be helpful to know, or to at least say, have you tried these types of things? So.
Yeah, absolutely. I can get that list. There's some of those already out there, but could be combined into one document. I participated in a webinar regarding these funds, and although these funds can be used for services, the larger spirit of these funds seems to be for building projects, renovations, more on that line than the service side. However, it's the statute does talk about the funds being available for services as well.
Thank you, Renda.
Have we contacted Jim to see if he's on his way, or?
I did just hear from him. It sounds like he'll be over shortly.
Okay, we'll move on to a request approval of a letter of support from the Red River Communications Board of the Border Grant. We've got Tom Stenophilus and Carrie Kleingartner. You can have a chair up here, sir.
Mr. Chair, while they're getting ready, this is an item that came forward from a meeting that you and the chair and I had with these two. We've had conversations in the past about making sure our county is represented as widely as possible from broadband services. And in the past, Red River Communications has sought a federal grant opportunity to find some funding, and recently a state opportunity has presented themselves. So that is why we're having the conversation with these two today. So thank you for coming.
Okay.
Good morning, Chairman Gross and the rest of the Clay County Commission. First of all, thank you. Thank you for your time this morning. I'm Tom Steinolfson. I'm the CEO of Red River Communications. With me is Carrie Kleingartner. She's our marketing specialist. You may recall we have been here. It's been a couple years ago, as Commissioner indicated. In the past, we have applied for federal funding to bring broadband to the rural. It was under the USDA Reconnect program. And we have applied twice for what I call Southern Clay County, south of Moorhead, Sabin, rural Sabin, and rural Comstock. And we have not scored high enough, and we've been denied twice. It's a heavy lift grant, and we've dedicated a lot of resources, time and money, obviously, and it has not paid dividends. We have worked under the border-to-border program in other counties in Minnesota and had success. We think it's a very well-structured program. It uses both state dollars as well as some federal funds, and they've been administering this grant program for, I believe, well over a decade, with a lot of focus on fiber to the home here over the last couple years. So, is everybody familiar, so to speak, with the lack of good, reliable, stable broadband in parts of Clay County? I'm assuming you probably hear about it. So today we'd like to speak to you about portions of rural Hawley and then rural Sabin, rural Comstock. Those are two areas, there are three areas, I listed them as three areas. It would be two separate grant applications that we're here to talk about today. So what is being displayed right now is the rural Sabin and rural Comstock.
Yep.
Now, I want to be clear about something, that orange area is where we are looking to apply for grant dollars to build broadband to. The broadband we would build would be fiber to the home. It's the preferred technology in today's day and age. Even with the satellite connections and everything else, the most cherished type of broadband connection is a fiber to the home connection. I want to be clear, when you look at that orange area, obviously most of you are pretty familiar, you can see the Red River, and there's a strip along Highway 75. There'd be some stuff over by Doran, there'd Baker, so on and so forth. This would not, our applications will not completely fix the rural broadband problem in Clay County. Obviously, there's areas north of the Highway 10, and there's edges there. You may ask, okay, Tom, you're down there, why is that? Basically, limitation on funds, both from the state and Red River's matching, that we have deemed what we believe is the biggest apple that we can take, the bite out of the apple at this point. I will stand in front of you and say we are committed to that area. If we can get a grant to start, we will be back and we'll search for more funds. As always, I think you guys are familiar with fighting flooding and so on and so forth. There's always somebody on the wrong side of the line. We understand that. And we just want to be very transparent about that and clear. We will continue, but this is our proposed funding service area. Could you change it to the Holly one for me?
Yeah, so this one would be the rural Moorhead area. This other area I'm going to show you next is the rural Holly area, and you guys have printed copies of these in your packets too, so if you want to look into it a little bit more detail. So this is the second project that we're looking at doing. This is encompassing 61 locations, and the reason for the jagged edges is that we are up against some landline exchanges. Plus, the state of Minnesota tells us what areas are eligible for funding and what are not. So these lines that you see along the edges are really following the state guidelines. And we pulled away from the city of Holly just to make sure that we can grant that there isn't any competitive nature happening, so that the grant has this best chance of being approved.
So those would be two separate applications. We'll talk a little bit about an overview of the program. Some of you may be very familiar with it. Some of you may be generally familiar. This round of funding has availability of $50 million. These two projects that we're putting in front of you are over $7 million, heading for $8 million. So, I'm just gonna lay it out there. In order for Clay County to qualify, we are going to have to make a good application. We've been denied twice on the federal level. We think this is our best opportunity. Lack of broadband, it stifles growth. People need to have broadband. There's a commissioner that sits on with you that does not have good broadband, and I'm sure she has voiced that to you, but it will stifle your growth. Children need broadband to be educated properly, and today's work from at home policies and so on and so forth, people do not want to live where there is not good broadband. So, with that being said, keeping things moving, we would like to see, and I believe Carrie has provided it, letters of support signed by the commission, as well as any executive positions within the county. We believe that is helpful. Carrie is reaching out to other entities such as school superintendents that would be involved, different things like that. Mm-hmm. But we would like to see a letter of support, from the commission and individually signed. We much appreciate that. We believe you've done that in the past. The other thing we have, and that directly involves the scoring for these grants, is what they deem a partnership. So there's a memorandum of understanding that I believe is in your packet as well. I believe you all have seen that, and we have used that in our past for those applications. We'd like to see that as well. Now, the third, and maybe the most challenging for you all, but in order to score well with the state of Minnesota border to border, financial commitments from entities such as yourself really helps the scoring. That can be a very broad statement. I know you are not sitting on all kinds of coffers, so when entities such as us sit in front of you, that you can just write checks. But I really challenge you to sit back and see what you have. Wilkin County, we sat with them. They were able to make a small financial contribution. I know there's other counties, there's other colleagues of mine that have done it, that have gotten larger ones. I don't know if you still have access to any ARPA funds. I know that's getting to be a dated term. A lot of those funds were, initially supposed to be used for broadband. But I challenge you all to have a conversation and see what you can do. We believe that would help the partnership and help bring good broadband to a large portion. With that, I'd like to just open it up for questions. I've been speaking quite a bit, so. Mr. Chairman?
Well, thank you for the presentation, and I guess we did meet with you about a couple of weeks ago, and full support of the presentation. I don't know how much money Steve can find for you, but whatever contribution, I think we should move ahead with this and support this program, and I got no further questions because I pretty well explained that, this is the second time I've heard your presentation, and I fully support the program, and I think we should move ahead with it.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion, provide a letter to Red River Communications in support of the border-to-border grant application.
Okay, we've got a motion to support the border-to-border grant application.
I'll second the.
A second to that. Okay, any further questions?
Mr. Chair, I was just going to ask if that recommendation included the memorandum of understanding that's included in your packet.
Has that been reviewed by the county attorney?
That was originally drafted by the Richland County attorney. I adjusted it for Clay County, so I have that in a workable document if you would like to adjust and make changes.
Mr. Chair, I think it would just be worth reviewing. I mean, I don't think being able to just look at it right here, right now, would be giving it much due diligence. So I think if just having the opportunity to look at it and make sure it comports.
Chair, maybe we could take those in two separate motions. Because the one would be to support the grant, and then the other one would be a separate one that we could do with the conditions of the attorney review.
I would
You agree with that?
limit my motion to the letter of support.
My second as well.
Very good. Okay, any further discussion?
Just a question. So, I'm aware,
Is this microphone on?
No.
sorry. So I just have a question. Having sold property just south of Sabin following County Road 11. So what happens, I'm just asking, how does this align or work along with Midco that's dug out there and the AT&T?
Thank you for your question, Commissioner. First of all, let's take a step back, and you'll see there's quite a wide several-mile radius around Sabin. One thing which is correct, we agree with, these grants will not fund competition. So if there's already good broadband in an area, that is very explicit that they don't want to have a location even funded. So in this area, the primary providers are Lumen, as they refer to themselves now, which is a landline provider. Mid-Continent would be a wireless broadband provider in most of that area. To the best of our knowledge that we sit here, going by the maps that the state provided and our research, there is no landline broadband. Now, let me take another minute and describe what is called broadband right now. Anything less than 100 down and 20 meg up is considered not broadband. Some of these areas do not have access to 25.3. That's 25 meg down, 3 meg up. You guys probably don't watch that closely, but the FCC is right now discussing making what is viable broadband a gigabit download speed and 500 meg up. So that is what is being discussed because it just keeps going. Sir, did I answer your question?
Yeah, and I don't understand all the numbers. I understand high speed and not high speed, but anyway, I just know it's still, even with those two, it's still a problem.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, just for clarification, Mid-Continent, to the best of our knowledge, has got fiber optic services to the premise within the city limits of Sabin. And hence, we have drawn a large circle to make sure that buffer was large enough.
Thank you.
Just as information, some of those providers that we have recently discussed have opposed some of these applications.
Well, I might speak to it a little bit. As you all know, I do reside within one of these areas, and I think it's important to note that with the application, the two separate application areas, there are 4 Clay County school districts in which residents reside. And I don't think, you mentioned ARPA almost being a prehistoric term. I hate to remind us all of when we were all virtual and kiddos were signing in. My 3 children were not able to attend classes at the same time with our internet service. I live 8 miles from an area where over 250,000 people reside, and that's not acceptable for our residents. It's not acceptable for the ability to draw economic development. So I wholeheartedly support these applications. I also appreciate the fact that you've been deliberate to carve out city jurisdictions. I don't want to create any sort of haves and haves not with this application, so I appreciate that. Out of our discussion, it was helpful to talk a lot about the infrastructure that will be going in place with the southern embankment, with the diversion project as well. So I appreciate that you've taken a look at this and really been thoughtful to not only where you could serve, but where is the district that will most likely secure a grant to serve citizens? We did talk a little bit about what that number could be if Clay County could find any dollar to help support this. I know we're outside of budgeting, so that's a tricky ask. There is a small pot of money for ARPA that we did discuss. We've seen other entities request some local funding match to secure grants. We've done that with road projects, specifically with the housing request that we had from Dara Lee, the ability to leverage funds with some sort of match. So hopeful that maybe we could have some sort of discussion, understanding we're on a small timeline. But if there's any way, you did submit or let us know what the cost per mile was for service, just so the board understands. We're not talking a match to become partners in this project at all. But it is great, and I think it's important that the board understands how much it is.
So, Commissioner Mongino, did I pronounce that correct?
No, but it's okay. It's Mojo.
Mojo, thank you. I apologize.
No.
Yes, and I apologize, the numbers, I took several days off for some hunting. I hadn't been in the office too much, so I don't have the exact number per mile, but let me share something with you. The rural Holly would affect approximately 63 locations, and it would take 35 and a half fiber miles to serve those. So that's only 2 customers per mile. And that's, a good number is anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 per mile. That project alone is $1.86 million. Without some federal funding, assistance of some sort, it just does not make business sense for somebody like us to serve. And, you know, I'm gonna put in a pitch. We're a local company. We don't, our money doesn't go to a high-rise in a state on the East Coast, right? And that, I truly believe that's really the difference, and that's what it's gonna take for us to get good broadband in rural Clay County.
Thank you.
Just with that, in the south of Moorhead, there is 202 locations with 106 miles of fiber there as well, for a $6.2 million build.
Well, I might also entertain that we, with proper approval and review from our attorney's office, make a motion to approve the MOU contingent on that review.
Okay, we got another motion on the board on the vote on first, so.
I thought we already voted, I'm sorry.
Yeah, did that motion include both, are there 2 separate grant applications?
2 separate grant applications.
So the motion would include both?
both.
Okay.
Okay, we got a motion to approve both grant applications.
That was Dave's motion, I think, so.
Okay. And included yours, okay. Are you changing that motion?
No, I just want to vote on it.
Okay.
Sorry, Frank.
Yeah, you mixed me up enough now, okay. Very good, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, now, Frank, I will make a motion to approve the MOU contingent on legal review.
Second.
Thank you for the clarification, okay. Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve the MOU. Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just with last words here, just of that, and I know it's the challenging. When it comes to any available funds that you could use to maybe help fund the application, something like that, just like the commissioner said, you're not looking to get into the broadband business. We're only trying to assist and bring good broadband to Clay County. With all due respect, sir, do I work with Mr. Larson? Is there some other information? Just looking for some parting advice as we depart.
Mr. Chair, I certainly can talk with Tom after the meeting and have further discussion on this issue.
Okay. We'll definitely look what we can find in the budget there.
We appreciate it. I personally understand it's a challenge. We need to get to work on this. Understand something. If this grant were to get awarded, they would probably award in an April timeframe, and it probably takes about 24 months to get that built. So we start to talk how long it is before these households, as the commissioner talked about, have challenge getting education. What a long cycle this is. So we thank you. I would leave this. If, you know, I know this is broadcast, maybe some of you start to get questions, what have you. Most of you, as well as the team you have my contact information and Carrie's. As the commissioner indicated, numbers blur out when it comes to this technology. Understand we are here to help answer questions if there become any. And we will be looking to the state representatives to try to get strong support from them to help weigh this thing. We've taken more time than we expected. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. Larson will stay in contact. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move back a little bit to Jim to request approval of the Millz House bid to replace the gym floor.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I apologize for being late this morning.
No problem, we got you here.
I'm here today to request to go ahead with one of the quotes from Millz House to replace our gym floor. The quote we have is for $12,976. We received 3 other quotes. They vary between $27,000 for some higher quality stuff and 9,000 with some lower quality stuff. And with a $9,000 one, that we would have to put that in ourselves. But so we would like to go with the one for 12,000 Millz House. It's about identical material that we have now. They'll install it, they'll paint the lines on it. And that's
Very good. Any questions or motions?
I'll move we make a motion to accept the low bid for Millz House to replace the
Gym floor.
gym floor for $12,976.
I'll second that with the notation that this was also discussed at our regional group, and they all supported this, and we had actually, those funds were already set aside, 40,000 between this and the ceiling was set aside to cover those costs, so.
Very good. Okay, we got a motion, a second to accept the motion to replace the gym floor in the amount of $12,976. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, and I do apologize for being late.
Problem. Okay, we'll move on, discussion of food, pool, and lodging fees for 2024. Kathy and Carmen and Kent. The new fees are listed on the back of the request.
Yep. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having us. The fees that we're presenting are to request a recommendation for the Community Health Board. Now, the delegated agreement for food, pool, and lodging inspections comes to the Community Health Board, so that's Becker, Clay, Ottertail, and Wilkin. And so that board will vote on the fees. We've had a meeting with an Ottertail commissioner that is on that Community Health Board, and then Commissioner Gross, because we are at an impasse about the recommendation of fee increase. So we're bringing this forth in hopes that we can get a recommendation from this board. Our Community Health Board meeting is on Friday this week, and so that board will get to make the decision about whether we have some fee increases or they don't agree. At this point in time, we're making the recommendation from Clay. Ottertail is not necessarily in favor, but they are meeting today about it as well. So I can let Kent talk about the what we're recommending for increase.
There we go. Good morning. So what we're proposing or asking for is an increase to our base fees for our licenses of $25. So that would mean that everyone that has a food, hotel, swimming pool license, there's a base fee on each license in addition to whatever their elections are for what they're being licensed for. So this would be an increase of $25. Basically, that would be the major part of that. We did, since we are opening things up and taking a look, more of a housekeeping type of move. We are moving some of the camping charges from $4 to $5 because it's just easier to work with 5s and 0s than 4s and 8s. So that is basically what we are looking to increase. And you know, as far as our delegation agreement and around the rest of the landscape of the state, we are in the same ballpark on all of our fees and license fees, I should say. The state is actually currently looking into increasing their own. They sent out a questionnaire last year, so they're looking, Minnesota Department of Health is looking at some fee adjustments as well. We don't know what that's going to be, and it probably will be a little bit longer process, but we are currently right in, above or below the state currently on all of our fees right now, so.
I think just to understand the last three are for vacation homes. They're gonna be primarily for Ottertail County. Those $500 increases and $400. So those aren't gonna affect Clay County, because we don't have any of them right now. Okay, very good. And we had this discussion with, like you said, that Ottertail County's some opposition to it, but I think this clarify, we're not asking for very much of a fee increase for Lake County.
And Mr. Chair, we haven't had a fee increase for 5 years, so, and then the 1 year during COVID, the whole state waived fees for the establishments, of course, because many of them had to close and for some period of time. So I did talk with our county attorney in hopes that Auditor and Clay could just make a decision on this, but he reminded me the CHB has to, they all have to vote. Becker County uses the state, MDH does their inspections, so they're not covered by this delegation agreement. Clay does Clay and Wilkin, and the two entities that have the staff is Clay and Ottertail. But the whole CHB needs to vote on this.
Okay,
Mr. Chair?
yes.
I obviously have been a proponent of making sure we're looking at fees and making adjustments that make sense based on the cost in which it takes to work this out. The only question I have on these is, I understand if it's easier to work with 5s than 4s and 8s, but it seems there's not, what I struggle with is there's not like a percentage increase. It's 25% for the $4 ones, but then, if you look at what a 25% increase would be, it would be 75, not 25. And I'm not advocating for a $75 increase. I'm just struggling with how we came about the numbers for the increases. Can you talk a little bit about that? It seems a little skewed.
I can speak to that. Basically, 2018 was the last time that we did an increase, and at that time we were looking at the Minnesota Department of Health's fee structure and their base fees, and we were $25 below that, so we did a $25 increase to the base fees, which is kind of the same action that we're looking for here. And so that was 2018, and now being 5 years down the road, and with the state looking at some increases, being that Ottertail was looking at some of these vacation home rental increases, and we're opening things up to look at it. It was kind of an opportunity, since we're opening this up and looking at these things, let's look at what else we would do.
Okay.
So being that it was 5 years since the last time, and with the state looking at doing some increases, we thought, well, we'll do another $25 increase to our base fee, which wouldn't really target anyone specifically. It's everyone would have $25 more for that annual license. And speaking to the 4s and the 8s, that was strictly what it sounds like. It's not a huge impact, depending on who you are, I suppose, but yeah.
And Mr. Chair, we do intend to look at these on an annual basis at our Community Health Board meeting. So those will be reviewed annually, and we always compare them with the Minnesota Department of Health fees. So in keeping up with them, some of our fees could be higher depending on what they are, but we'll be reviewing those annually.
Okay.
Yeah, when it comes to fees, I've always had the position that, we should be charging what it costs to go through the process. We shouldn't be in the money-making business when it comes to establishing fees. And so my question becomes is, we compare with what the state is. The state takes, I don't know how they determine theirs, but obviously maybe in the metro area of the Twin Cities area, it's going to cost more to do those types of things than it will be in some rural areas. But I'm interested to know, for example, on on some of these fees that we have, what is the actual time involved to go through a process? The time that it takes, and I'm sure it's not just the actual first dealing with it, but then I suppose you have to have follow-up visits and those types of things during the course of the year. That's all part of that. But at some point in time, I think we need to be looking at how do these, when we just increase the fees for submitting tires at our resource recovery facility, we just didn't do it because we hadn't increased fees the last 5 years. We did it because the cost to dispose of them went up. So I think we need to make sure that we're monitoring that and doing it based on recovering our costs.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Campbell, that's exactly what we're doing. So we're always trying to meet, long ago, and Commissioner Campbell, you're probably the only one around when we did Clay Wilkin, and we always wanted to have our revenue meet our expenses. Right now, we're close, but we're not raising them just to raise them. We're raising them to try to keep up, and Carmen has the details. But to keep up with our expenses, costs go up, salaries go up, and the fees have not gone up. So it's not to raise them just to raise them, it's to meet our expenses.
But and again, I think that's important for that the record shows that you know, that kind of goes to Commissioner Mojo's comments. Well, it's not tied to a percentage, it's tied to, you know, maybe each of these types of things, I don't know, Kent, if there's a certain amount of more work that goes into an establishment that has a license that also has a swimming pool. Like, does that require extra work on your part? Those types of things. So, you know.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. I neglected to include that in explaining what we were doing. Was, yes, there is a component here of meeting our expenses, and yeah, depending on what licensing that a place has, it definitely does affect how much time we're there. You could have a hotel that would have the lodging rooms that we would be looking at, the swimming pool, perhaps a spa, and then also a continental breakfast and a kitchen. So, and there are places that take, 1 to 2 hours, and there's others that are pretty quick, like a coffee shop might be a half hour, something like that. So, yeah.
Okay, any further discussion or any motions? Not, I'll make a motion to increase the fees.
Second.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, it'll be a recommendation to the Community Health Board. They get to make the decision about the fee increase. So this board
It's
is
just
making a recommendation.
A recommendation to the Community Health Board to raise the fees to what is recommended here.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
And one more thing, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. The decision may be made at the Community Health Board. They may decline raising any fees. So we're also faced with that if the vote is, the majority votes not to raise those. So therefore, then we'll be short on meeting our expenses.
Okay,
Mr. Chair?
Lise, we're in support of it.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just have a question in regards to the timing of the discussion on this for counties. We've already approved our preliminary budgets, and understanding that this isn't a tax, it's a revenue, but if the revenue is not approved, it's going to change how much we're paying for it. It just seems like the timing is delayed from what maybe we should be doing. I mean, it seems like this discussion at the Community Health Board should be happening in summer before, no?
Yep.
This actually has been a very long conversation.
Yes.
Actually did begin last March, I believe.
Yes, we had a long conversation, and we've just been, it's been a struggle to move the Community Health Board along to change the fees. So yes, we've been addressing this for a long time.
And we only meet there 4 times, I think it's
Twice a year.
twice a year. Okay, excuse me.
So, Mr. Chair, can I ask a follow-up question then? So we have this Community Health Board that's multiple counties. But all of the work that goes through, it's done out of Clay County Public Health Department, is that correct?
And Otter Tail.
And Otter Tail? So the food lodging inspections and license fees, does Otter Tail County have their own?
They
And then we
have-
do, Clay and Becker?
Yes, they have 3 or 4 individuals that do the inspections that are Otter Tail employees. Kent manages the whole program, so he oversees those inspectors in Otter Tail, but they have their own staff that do the inspections. And they Carmen manages all the fiscal responsibility for all of that. And then the license fees that are obtained by Auditor go back to pay for their staff and expenses.
Okay. So we have a clear indication then, based on the fees that are collected from Clay County establishments and the cost associated to those fees by Clay County staff, do we have that data? And is that data where we're saying if we don't increase these, we're gonna be short? Well, I think that information needs to be clearly stated to the full board. That we're just, we're supporting these increases just to maintain, the cost of doing it. That was my point to start with.
Yep, and Mr. Chair and Commissioner Campbell, yes, that is exactly our point, and that's why we met with Commissioner Gross and an individual commissioner from Auditor. They are also having the discussion at their board today, of which Kent will be a part of that discussion, but we're very much pushing that we need to meet our expenses. And so, yeah, my fear is that they won't approve this. I don't know that, though, for sure, but they all get to vote.
Is there ever such a thing of having a fee based on the county that you're in, as opposed to all counties having the same fee?
We've had that discussion over the last few weeks as this conversation has grown quite lengthy, but technically, we have a delegation agreement, and that delegation is for all three, at least as the food, pools, and lodging goes, all three of our counties, Wilkin, Clay, and Auditor, where we are held to making sure that that's the same throughout. Now, the fee structure has never really been brought up as a question as far as if it needs to match across the board. So that's something that we've talked about and perhaps might have to ask that question if that's a possibility.
Right. I mean, if you're gonna have an impasse between two counties based on what they each one charge, you might have to look at that agreement and say, how do you modify that? That allows Clay County to have ours and other counties theirs.
And Mr. Chair and Commissioner Campbell, that's exactly what we've talked about. And I'll just say, as long as we've been here, there's never been an impasse in the fees. There's never been an issue with the fees.
I know there wasn't years ago.
Correct, and up to this point. So now we've experienced an issue, and so we have definitely talked about having different fees if this doesn't go through.
Thank you.
I was just, and I'm the alternate with Commissioner Gross. I'm somewhat familiar with this. Don't we have an MOU that would spell out whether we are locked into, or a JPA, we're locked into the same fees?
Our Community Health Board is the Joint Powers Agreement board that is able to make that decision on the fees, so.
Okay, it doesn't spell out.
That we can do separate fees. It does not, so we'd have to work with the state, MDH, who delegates that to us. We'd have to work with them on the ability to, if we come to an impasse, of splitting those out.
Okay.
Carmen, did you have a comment?
I was just going to comment that all this discussion really took place in the beginning of June. To begin with, at the first CHB meeting, and there was no indication at that time that we would come to this impasse, so these fees were included in our budget. So our budget isn't, if we get them, is fine. It's if it's not, we're gonna go down a little bit. And we're talking.
On revenues.
Yes, about $7,000, so it's not, a lot when you look at the county, but that's what we need to break, pretty close to break even.
No.
I think if you just look at salaries, the increase of,
Sure. Yeah.
you go from $4 to $5. I mean, the salaries already have gone up that much in the last 5-6 years, so. Okay. Any further comments? Not? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with this, request approval to hire a full-time deputy auditor for the motor vehicle. Lori?
Good morning. I've had a resignation in motor vehicle, and that is effective December 15th, so I'm just looking for permission to replace that position with backfill if necessary.
Move to approve.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the rehiring and the backfill. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Now we got next thing is our request to approve or reallocate the remaining premium dollars from the jail law enforcement construction project to the withdrawal management Detox project.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you recall, this is really a continuation of our conversation that we had last week. At that time, the request of this board was to utilize roughly $1.5 million remaining in the correctional facility law enforcement center project to the general fund and then an allocation to our future projects. What we weren't able to share at that time is we were having ongoing conversations with Mr. Hagan and elders, their bond counsel, about the possibility of utilizing some dollars that we viewed as restricted. After meeting with the bond counsel, they determined that there would be an additional $959,130.23 that could be available or would be available with the assumption that we would look at changing our capital improvement plan, which we are required to do as part of our upcoming bonding project. And so what Ms. Johnson has done is you each have a handout in front of you. Part of that project, we'd allocated some funds, and based on the new information, it will look maybe a little bit different. And so the total remaining available dollars are $2,506,082. The recommendation before you this morning would be with the withdrawal management detox facility would be to fund the full gap that was in that project of $1,927,906. We would take of the remaining dollars, we would take $448,880 and put that towards the DMV project, paying down the cost of the potential project there. With that, I'd yield for questions.
So based on this, and this is, it's great news, obviously. And so based on this, then, what we previously thought when we did we took 1.5 million, I believe it was, and there was still going to be that gap of the 448,000, right? So this now saying that we can do that, so are we now suggesting that we'll have a $6 million bond?
Yes. Well, it'll be slightly more when you include the costs, but we're starting.
So it'll be $6 million plus the fees and everything associated with it?
Right.
Not the 440. The 448 is to help get us to the full cost of the project.
Exactly.
Right. I think that's great.
Are you saying that the 448 will not be included in the bond?
We can reduce the amount of the bond by that 400. Originally, we're looking at needing to bond $6,500,000 roughly,
Okay.
just rounded. And now, because of that additional dollars, we can fully fund the shortfall in the withdrawal management facility, plus apply that $448,000 to bring down what we had anticipated to be a $6.5 million bond to a $6 million bond.
Very good, okay,
Right? Did I?
Correct. No,
that right?
exactly right.
Okay.
very good.
And Mr. Chair, Commissioners, just of note also, you'll notice down on the other, this will leave $129,296 remaining in funds. Our goal, certainly through our process with Ellers, is that we're hopeful that we'll continue to receive a double A bond. But we also, in the event of not knowing that until this process moves forward, to leave the $129,296 available for additional costs that may come up with the projects.
Very good.
Mr. Chair, we did meet as a finance committee. Commissioner Campbell and I have met with staff on this, and just really grateful for the work that was done early on with our last law enforcement project, to come to have a, I don't want to say a kitty like this, but it is really nice to be able to apply this additional fund towards the project, to really reduce what the need for the bonding component is. I think the first, we can deal with the bonding piece in the next resolution, but just to help clarify it all for us, I'll move forward with this agenda item, which would be the motion to approve the utilization of project dollars remaining from the jail law enforcement construction project totaling $2,506,082 for the withdrawal management detox project, coming to allocation of $1,927,906 for the withdrawal management and $448,880 for the DMV project.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second.
If I can just ask for some clarification on this, because I thought before, the motion had to be to first send those dollars to the general fund. Is there?
We did, excuse me, got a bit of a voice issue. The 1.5 was sent to the general fund to be reallocated however you wanted to,
Right,
basically.
right.
But the remaining 959, those are actually premium dollars, which will stay in the construction fund.
Okay.
So they don't need to be sent, they'll just remain in the construction fund, but we're renaming that basically to a DMV.
Okay, so the previous action took care of the need to transfer.
Correct.
What we needed to the general fund, and then we made that second step then that committed it to
Right.
that project. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that we didn't have to do something for the other 900.
We'll have to redo the commitment allocation, but other than that, that's.
Okay.
So as stand, my motion would then leave the $129,296 to be utilized at a later date.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I'll also make a motion to allow our Auditor Treasurer's Office to rename the jail law enforcement construction project financial documents to the DMV fund.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to rename the fund. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anything further on that then?
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We'll take a short break and come back.
Good morning. Good morning again, Mr. Chair. With the board's actions on November 7th in regards to requesting potential bonds to pay for our DMV project, Ms. Johnson reached out to Eilers, and Mr. Hagan, who is here today, is going to walk us through a little bit of the pre-sale information which we're requesting through resolution today.
Thank you, Steve, Lori. Todd Hagan from Ehlers and Associates from the Twin Cities. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the good weather coming here. This is great. It's fall Kansas weather, I hear. That's what it is. And by the way, I couldn't have done it without these two. It's great to have clients that think out of the box and throw stuff at us, and that's what we're here as financial advisors, talking with the bond attorneys to find the best fit for your financing project coming up. This one's for the DMV because Detox is taken care of by the cash that they just previously talked about. So we love those kind of thinkers, and it makes us better thinkers as well. So I've got a pre-sale report in front of the board, and it's just a kind of a snapshot of kind of the terms and conditions and the process we're going to go through to finance what's left over, which again is the DMV facility. Again, we're going to apply $506,000 and some change of the unspent 2017B bond proceeds. And so to do that, we also have to hold a public hearing on a capital improvement plan, and it's a 5-year plan, but it's really just a snapshot of a 23-24 expenditure, which is this bond issue. And that hearing will be on December 12th. I think you've got a 5 o'clock meeting that night. So I will get busy when I get back to the office drafting that little plan, which includes this new project and the repurposing, right, of those old or existing bond proceeds that weren't spent on the law enforcement jail project in 2017. So lots to do, but it's a very easily understood bond out into the market. It is 6.45 million general obligation capital improvement plan bond. It's, again, doesn't require voter approval, but a capital improvement plan does have a reverse referendum period that's 30 days after December 12th hearing, so we have to wait a little while. That's why our schedule is a little bit slow, because I won't be selling bonds and coming back to you folks till January 23rd because of that 30-day sort of waiting period. Assuming it's essential function, so we should be okay, always have been. But that's one of the sort of processes we're running through with the county is not voter approval, but there's a public hearing, so there's due process there, and a payback of 15 years. This is going to be paid back from property taxes, not sales tax. Again, just a great repurposing of those old bond proceeds and the cash that you folks had that you didn't need in 2017. It's just win-win all over the place. I know we're going to sell this out to the public market competitively because it's going to be with your bond rating. And I know Steve had talked about you've got a AA with Standard & Poor's. We're hoping to keep that. Status quo would be great, not looking for any upgrades. So we've got some work to do there between now and the bond sale. We also had heard that Wells Fargo, I think, is interested in maybe bidding on this too. They would go up to a 15-year period locally here, which I see banks are mostly sort of in the 10-year or under because they tend to get their funds federally, and so they sort of loan from that. But they sounded receptive. Maybe Lori had said up to 15 years, so that would be good to see some participation locally as well as through the public market. Although we are seeing lower rates in the public market right now because it's not based on that federal funds interest rate that we've now has been going up, and now sort of stayed put. So the folks in the public market are mutual insurance companies, retail folks like you, me, and whoever is bond funds, 401ks, 403bs, all that kind of good stuff. And then some banks as well. So it's a whole host of players out in the public market, and that's what we're looking to see too. So that's going to have a nice bond rating on that, and it's a relatively short payback. I do have like a preliminary, of course, schedule attached here. We've got bond numbers that are preliminary as well, and sort of the bond buyer index graph, if you want to take a look at see where the trends are. Doesn't quite show when my first house mortgage was back in the mid-80s, but I remember it was 10.5% or 11% back in the mid-80s when the feds did all this the last time. So things have looked a lot better, and even though rates are going up, they're still pretty cheap in my mind because I go back a ways. So this guy is not falling. There's a little bit less supply out there these days as far as bond issuances, so it's lots of hunger out there for bonds that we see. We get some good bids. We get a lot of bids, and they're very competitive. So it's a good time to throw this out and see what we get competitively. I think that is, it's a straightforward approach to the financing. We're going to go bank qualification on the bond issue. And so, like I said, Wells Fargo, I think, will appreciate bank qualification on this, so that should help those folks as well as the bidders out there. We've looked at your existing bond issues out there for any refinancing. opportunities, guess what? There's nothing out there. Rates are, what you've got locked in right now is really, really cheap money, so it's hard to beat that at the moment, but we always look at that to see if there's anything to combine it with as well. So I think that is it in a nutshell, and again, once you issue these bonds, you can invest them for a reasonable period at a yield that typically doesn't go above the bond rate, but you will have our arbitrage team take a look at that as well, so we can maximize that as high as we can as the bond proceeds get spent to take advantage of higher investment rates as well. So I think we're in a pretty good environment that way as well. So again, pre-sale report today. We're looking at a public hearing on December 12th for the capital improvement plan and the repurposing of the 17B bond proceeds. We'll take bids on this the morning of January 22, and I'll come back to the board the morning of January 23rd with those bids. And we're looking to close the bond issue up on February 8th. And so there's two resolutions for the county board to consider. One is to authorize Ellers and Associates to package this bond issue up and to send it out for bids, and again, come back to you folks at that January date. The other resolution is to set the public hearing on the capital improvement plan for December 12th, and that's those are the two actions we're asking for the board. So I yield to you folks for any questions.
So just as a matter of record, this is request approval of Resolution 2023-26, providing the sale of $6,450,000 general obligation capital improvement plan bonds, Series 2024A.
Mr. Chair, that is the first request that Mr. Hagan talked about. The next item that he highlighted is the second agenda item, which is a separate resolution.
Yes.
But covered under the same thing, and we'll need two separate motions.
Right, we're just working on 2023-26 at this time.
Mr. Chair, I'd move the resolution.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion, a second to approve the resolution, providing the sale of $6,450,000 general obligation capital improvement plan bonds. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I do think we have to just clarify some things here, because just based on what we talked about prior, and I'm referring back to this deal, and this, we talked about now only needing to bond $6 million, and we noticed here that it's $6,450,000. I'm assuming that is then to cover that first year's interest and then the fees that are associated with it, right? Because if you look at page 54 of 69, there's right out of the gate, there's going to be interest of $290,000, right, Lori? Is that?
Yep, that's right. It's to cover the capitalized interest as well as the fees.
And the fees. So that's the actual money that we need is the $6 million, but then we also have to have those additional dollars for the fees. And then I just wanted to bring up too, when we transfer those monies out of there, there's an important factor of why we're able to do that. And that is because our sales taxes are doing what they're doing. The original law enforcement center and correctional facility project was a $52 million project, but the end result was we were going to need about $70 million to pay all that back. And part of that, in that process, we had anticipated what our annual sales tax collections would be, and that we would need the full amount plus some. But because of where the sales tax collections have been going and where they're doing, those dollars by themselves is anticipated to cover the principal and interest payments throughout the bond period. Is that correct, Lori?
Yeah, we initially anticipated needing some local funds to go along with the sales tax, but due to the amount of sales tax we're getting, we do not need those local funds.
Right. So, yeah. So again, I think that's important for the public to be aware of that too. That otherwise, it would have been in our best interest not to transfer those funds. That they would have been used to make sure that we cover that cost of paying off those other debts.
Thank you for that information. Okay. Any further discussion on this? We did have a motion on this, right? Okay.
Yeah, in a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, now we're gonna go request approval of Resolution 2023-27, calling for a public hearing on the 5-year capital improvement plan and authorizing the issuance and sale and use of general obligated capital improvement plans bond. Okay, you've already covered that pretty much, I think.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I move to approve Resolution 2023-27, calling for the public hearing on the 5-year capital improvement plan and authorize the issuance and sale and use of general obligation capital improvement plan bonds.
Okay, I think we've already got a date set on that, haven't we, or?
Be December 12th.
December 12th.
Okay, we've got a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve 2023-27. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
get her done.
All right.
Did one of those resolutions include what he'd asked for, that authorized Eilers to do the,
The pre-sale, yeah, that was the first
that
resolution.
was included in language in the first one? Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to request approval of Resolution 2023-28, declaring the official intent of Clay County to reimburse certain expenditures from the proceeds of bonds issued by the county.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Mr. Hagan addressed through this process, the funding that we receive won't be available to us till right around February 8th. With that, we've already started this project, and this resolution would allow the county to reimburse itself with bonding dollars for funding that we've already put forward for this project.
Move approval of 20.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Spending enough money now? Okay, with that, we move on to Resolution 2323-29 to be sponsored agency for the local road improvement plan grant. Justin?
Yes, good morning. So the resolution that I brought forward today is to be the project sponsor for the 7th Street extension in Glendon. So this was discussed a little bit last week, and I did reach out to Glendon, and they do intend to apply for the LRIP grant for the 7th Street extension. And that's what the resolution is for.
Okay, it's one that we've been talking about for a while, so hopefully we can get this completed. Excuse me.
Mr. Chair, I move resolution 2023-29.
Okay, we got a motion to approve the resolution,
I'll second the motion.
and we got a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, with that, we'll go on to committee reports. Let's see where we're at there. I guess, Kevin, we're gonna start with you today.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. On November 7th, we had a Diversion Authority Planning Committee meeting, and at that meeting, we discussed a little bit about some rail acquisition stuff that's going on in Horace, in the Horace area, in the elevator property. That will be taken up. I think there's been some activity on that, and I think that will be taken up at the next lands meeting. And they spent the vast majority of the time talking about the recreation, the potential recreation, and the task force group that would be handling that. And they talked about maybe having somebody like Jeff Schatz or somebody like that who would handle the facilitate that whole issue with all the different entities. So that pretty much was the extent of that, that same day, or excuse me, and then on the 9th, November 9th, I had a Lakes Country Service Cooperative meeting in Fergus Falls. We went over some personnel committee recommendations, and we reviewed the year-end budget estimate, which is on track. I know we talked about, I think, we have those positions up, and I think there was supposed to be ballots sent out. I know, Steve, you were gonna check on that. 'Cause I thought that each entity then was supposed to vote on, I know Clay County submitted my name up again, and I believe there are 4 positions up, or 4 people running for 3 positions that are up, so. Then on that same day, then, we did have the Red River Dispatch Budget and Finance Committee meeting. We went over the 2023 budget. There was really nothing new to report. Everything seems to be falling in line there as well with the numbers. We are, based on what we're looking at, we'll probably end up with a slight amount of revenues over expenditures based on the forecast with the amount of year remaining. And then we had some discussion regarding the transition from the fiscal agent from the city of Fargo going over to Cass County moving forward. And Dave may have some extra to add. Oh, no, you weren't part of that, but then the actual November 9th, we had the Red River Dispatch Board of Authority meeting. And again, we were looking at the facility update. There wasn't a whole lot new to add on the update. I think the leases have been all signed now, and the biggest news there, of course, is that our executive director has turned in her resignation effective January 1st with the Red River Regional Dispatch. She's moving on to another career path, so we wish Mary well. And we talked about a search, and I think we had both the chair, who was Chad Peterson from Cass County, and then Commissioner Ebinger as vice chair of that group from Clay County will be involved with personnel to move forward and doing a search with the intent of hopefully coming up with something. We have that, and we did also agree to have the we have an interim that she's automatically put in place through the joint JPA. So that concludes my report.
Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On November 9th, I was also at the Red River Regional Dispatch Center. Only thing on the leases, Eric Johnson, our attorney, provided an exhibit of the footprint of the new facility, showing the shared parking lot and driveway with the Fargo Emergency Services Training Building. On the search committee, what we determined the appropriate thing to do is to let the executive committee, the chiefs and the fire chiefs and the sheriffs kind of take lead on doing interviews and screening applicants, with myself and Chad Peterson, the chair, working with them just to have some oversight from the Board of Authority. And then the whole board will meet to interview and review finalists for the process on this. Again, the current assistant director will be the interim director, unless we can get this done within 60 days, which isn't going to happen. Fargo, under the memorandum of understanding, Fargo provides the HR services. Cass County agreed to work with them in any way necessary, but basically the review of the executive director's job description and setting up the advertising and application process is going to go through Fargo, and it's already underway on trying to get this thing started. I want to echo Commissioner Campbell's comments about Mary Philippi. I've worked with her since I came here in 2006 when she was the assistant director, and she has been a phenomenal employee, and the citizens of Cass Clay County have been really lucky to have her in the positions that she held. Wish her luck going forward with her new career.
Dave?
Yeah.
I just, so on that replacement too, that is one of the areas that within our GAPA requires a supermajority vote on.
Yes.
So when they do bring somebody forward, that will require at least one Minnesota entity voting in favor of whoever that person is.
Yeah, one Minnesota and one North Dakota.
Right, one.
Either way, yeah.
Right.
That's a good point. That is one of the things in the JPA that was clearly spelled out. Moving on, yesterday, on the 13th, I attended the first meeting we have for the proposed Ending Homeless Task Force over at Fargo City Hall. We had a discussion looking at the political alignment and potential collaborative capacity. It was a very high-level, 10,000-foot overview. The people that are being brought into this right now are not going to be the eventual committee that's put together. It's going to be, those are going to be homeless response leaders, subject matter experts, people with technical skills in the areas that we need, and there'll be a policy recommendation group to discuss funding and political alignment. That's going to kind of have an overview of that. But the requests and the work are going to be from a yet to be determined group of subject matter experts and providers. No decisions were made. It was just basically laying out some of the process that's going to take place down the road, and that'll be worked on in future meetings. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's see, on November 8th, I had the Cass Clay Food Commission was held over in the City Commission chambers in Fargo. 3 takeaways from that I'll mention. Erica Frank from our planning and zoning here in Clay County gave a overview or report on our 2045 Clay County comp plan with development and codes. Second, we had a good North Central USDA Regional Food Business Center update from our state director in Minnesota. She just talked about how the USDA is putting out $15 million in grants to our 3 states, nearby Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, for technical assistance to help mostly navigate groups, co-ops, small businesses wanting to do good food sales and how to grow their businesses. So they'll help with grant writing. They help them get additional funds. I think that will be very good for our area. And then last, I talked about this last month also. Food of the North is changing for 12 years. We had been having a event called First Fridays. That's ending, and ended last month. And now in December, we're going to be having a farewell celebration December 1st at Ruhala? Yeah. And if anybody in the public out there is wanting to go to that, they can just go to Food of the North, and there's a link on there to register online. So that'll be December 1st, and as the steering committee member, we are taking input from other groups that we've worked with through the years to decide what we're going to do in replacing First Fridays, and that's being developed. So more to come. I think we'll know more in January for sure. On November 9th, I was part of the Class WCD board meeting. Just a couple of things to bring out there. Want to report that 100% of all buffers are complete now in Clay County. The last ones were being taken care of by the Buffalo Red Watershed District, but they're all complete. Also, a update on Snaky Creek. That is improvement project going out by M.B. Johnson Park, and that's a $200,000 grant that went through the SWCD, and that construction will start in 2024. And then this was really cool to hear. There are private people in the food market, such as Cargill and General Mills and others, that have been working with Wilkin County for a few years in working with cover crops out in our area. And 5 counties got together that surround Wilkin, and those private corporations have given us a $5 million grant to help with cover crops. And Clay County itself hopes to utilize hopefully $1 million of that, and hopefully have somewhere around 28 contracts with landowners to the development of cover crops, working with that as part of their crops, giving them cover, when the crop comes off, have a cover crop, carry it through the winter. And then the last was a quick overview of the natural resource block grant, such as we had here by Matt for planning and zoning. They also received a natural resource block grant, which has grown quite a bit, and a big part of that goes for helping soil erosion and water retention and quality. So that's my report.
Thank you. Jenny?
Thank you, Commissioner Gross. On November 8th, I attended a roundtable of the Clay County leaders hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. This was a meeting to bring together stakeholders to discuss each entity's 2024 legislative priorities, talk about what our regional priorities or issues where we can continue to collaborate together will be. Talked about the date for the Moorhead Area Day at the Capitol, which in the past has been quite successful. They're anticipating an early March date. More is to come on that. They're wanting to make sure and space out as much as possible the dates with the city days at the Capitol, the county days at the Capitol, so that we can continue to have as much constant contact with legislators as possible. Members included university and college leadership, K through 12 leadership. The city of Moorhead was present, and the economic development organizations. Yesterday, I attended the Buffalo Red River Watershed District meeting. They discussed the Georgetown levy that is currently in their management. They did have a request from the city of Georgetown to transfer that property. They didn't feel at this time that made the most sense, since there will be a transfer of ownership and responsibility maintenance once the diversion project has gone through. So they did vote to send a message to the city of Georgetown that, well, that may be something that's in the best interest at this time. It just didn't make the most sense. They talked about the Wolverton Creek restoration project. They did vote on a subordination agreement, which basically means that while both the MCC JPA and the watershed are currently in the process of securing easements, because it's been difficult to secure some of those easements, that agreement Brian, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that agreement will then mean whichever entity secures the easement first, the additional entity will then be second in joining in on that, correct? Okay, thank you. So they did approve that. There was 2 authorization of appraisers on the Wolverton flood project. The City of Wolverton Flood Protection Project and the Upper Buffalo River Restoration. They did vote to authorize that appraiser agreement and did discuss their Minnesota Watershed Conference that's coming up and talked about membership and resolution delegates. And then at the end, in addition, was in Oakport, they did vote, a long discussion to vacate part of 54th. And the reason they did that is it's not technically been something that they have done because they know with the conclusion of the diversion project, there will be some additional vacations that may need to happen. They don't want to step on toes for the city of Moorhead, but because there's a landowner that's been in limbo for 3 years with this, did reach an agreement that they will go forward and do that, and appreciate that they were sensitive to not stepping on toes of other future folks that are in charge of that, but did feel that it was the best interest of all the entities. And they discussed the Citizen Advisory Committee membership makeup. And they did have an interesting item, and this was maybe news to me, is their mod is saying that they don't necessarily need to have a truth and taxation hearing every year, that the county's truth and taxation hearing covers their responsibility. And I just thought that was an interesting point of clarification, maybe. So if citizens are wanting to have an opportunity to speak on the watershed's budgets or taxation, that they need to come to ours in December, which was different than I've always thought. So that concludes my reports, Mr. Chair.
Wednesday at the Partnership for Health meeting, and that was discussed at an agenda item today. And Thursday had to be on the yellow ribbon. One thing was brought up that the veterans now have their 8 different clinics that they can go to in North Dakota to get their services. They don't have to come to Fargo. So that should be good news for veterans who have appointments with the Veterans Administration. Other than that, it was mostly Christmas party planning, I think. So everybody was doing something on that and mentioned some dates that they're going to have their Christmas party. Other than that, those are my meetings. I do want to mention that next Monday, we have the township meeting at 8 o'clock or 8:30, somewhere in that area. And also the work group this afternoon. I should mention probably, Steve, can you make that yet? Are you healthy enough? Or?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I just got an email, so I was distracted. What was the question?
I was just wondering if you're healthy enough to make the meeting this afternoon. I don't want to overstrain you with your...
Oh, yeah, no, I'm fine, Mr. Chair.
Okay, very good. Then 1 o'clock this afternoon, another meeting. So, okay, Steve, you got any report?
Just a couple things, Mr. Chair. Last Tuesday, I participated in department head evaluation. 15th, I met with representatives from Stearns County in regards to the work that we've done with Klein McCarthy for some future projects that they're looking at. On the 15th, I also met with Robert Wilson, Mike Redlinger, for part of our administrative group. We talked a little bit about homeless task force meetings, upcoming budgets and staffing. This next part of Thursday and Friday, I'm scheduled to be at Camp Ripley for the AMC's Futures meeting, so I'll be out of the office. And also just wanted to circle back as part of our RFP process that we talked on the housing earlier with Rhonda. We identified that we would be having a review committee. We did not identify a commissioner or commissioners that if you'd like to have them a part of a committee. And so I thought I'd bring that forward for your guys' discussion.
I'd join in again, as I did last time.
I didn't hear you, Paul. What?
I would join in as I did last time, if you're open to
You repeat that, what discussions?
The RFP, we're doing the RFP to spend the housing funds that Rhonda was here today, earlier, and we are identifying the committee of bringing that forward for a recommendation and looking through the applications. And so having a commissioner on that review committee, just looking for.
I think that's like December 12th.
I go ahead and nominate Commissioner Krabbenhoff for that. With that's part of his portfolio, I think, and there'd be a per diem associated if necessary.
I think it's up to the board if you'd like to have one or two candidates. Sometimes you've had two. One would be sufficient if you feel good about that.
We have a motion to appoint Paul. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Yeah, we got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That concludes my report.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I, Commissioner Mojo, you said it was the Buffalo Red Board that said they didn't have to have the,
It was a recommendation from their state association that because counties hold a truth in taxation meeting, watersheds don't necessarily need to hold their own. And I've never heard that before, and
oh, my question, so does the landowner who is interested in understanding that, do they go to the county that they live in, or do they come to Clay County?
yeah, it was not, the board didn't vote on any guidance. It wasn't clear. The reason I am bringing it up just for thought is if I have an issue with the school district, they have for the amount in which they're taxing, I have the ability to go to them. It just seemed curious.
Yeah, I have this, I share the same curiosity in that.
And I guess the reason, if we want to take it further, is, people will come here frequently and say, well, the city, my statement says this, or the budget, we don't specifically walk through the budget of the watershed that evening, nor do we provide it to citizens that evening. So maybe it's worth.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mojo, Commissioner Campbell, I'll reach out to, I also have not heard that before, but I'll reach out to our Auditor, Treasurer, Ms. Johnson, and see if she's heard anything along those lines.
Thank you.
Anything further? Brian? Karen, you got something? Jackie?
Just a reminder, Mr. Chair, that tomorrow we also have the Prairie Lakes Municipal Solid Waste Authority meeting. That's going to be held at our facility here in Moorhead tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And it is a posted public meeting for all to attend. And I was advised by somebody from SWAC last time that I should be providing donuts. So if you want a free donut, you'll get one tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks for that info.
Yep.
I'll probably have to make that one. No, I got a doctor's appointment. Sorry, I won't be there. Okay. We're adjourned.